Welcome to the Improving Rehabilitation Services Community of Practice. We are delighted to introduce you to two speakers who will share what they know about rehabilitation and why this is relevant to the services you provide and commission, even if they are not called rehabilitation. As a community of practice, we always welcome your feedback and want to draw your attention to a link where you can tell us what you think about this vodcast. Our first speaker is Helen McConville, who will offer a CCG perspective on how commissioning rehabilitation services differently has the potential to offer solutions.
CCGs commission more rehabilitation than they probably think. I think there are services that have the title rehabilitation in them, where it's very clear, for example, stroke services, or some of the orthopaedic services have elements of rehabilitation that are very clear. But actually, I think we commission services that have a rehabilitation thread in them. People are living with different conditions now. We have people who have been treated for cancer, for example, who are living with long-term consequences that might be a physical or psychological outcome of having had cancer. Medication is improved, treatment is improved, and actually people have the opportunity to live full lives if they have the opportunity to have rehabilitation. People with dementia benefit from rehabilitation, and the impact that rehabilitation can have on carers' ability to care is enormous. We really need to have some ambition for the people we're commissioning services for. A lot of guidance is very technical, it's highly specified around the things that we must do in the first hours, days and weeks of somebody's care pathway. But actually, the reality is that people will sometimes be living and surviving illnesses and accidents where they're really facing a new normal. I think when we're looking at commissioning care, we have to think about the full pathway. We have to think about the beginning, the middle and the end. And there isn't any point in investing at the front end of the pathway if we don't finish strong. People will survive and live with all sorts of health conditions that they didn't live with in the past. And really, rehabilitation is a way of helping people to move forward and live their lives. In health and social care, we need to build the bridge between people recovering from periods of illness and ill health through to actually regaining control over their lives, having ambitions and plans and goals, and maybe living a new normal life. I think the NHS outcomes framework is really clear. There are 5 domains that we commission against, and all commissioners, when they're writing service specifications or business plans, need to tick boxes. If you're ticking a box against domain 2 or domain 3 of the outcomes framework, then really you need to be considering rehabilitation as part of that. If we can involve providers of services, people who use the services and their carers in co-production of service specifications, then actually we can be confident that we are delivering a good service specification. I think as commissioners, we know we've got a contracting process. We know that that is a process, and we probably, for some of our contracts, look at them by exception. So we assume that if it's all working, no news is good news. But actually we run the risk of really missing a trick there. If we've got innovative providers who've got ideas, suggestions and ideas, we need to find a way of listening to them. And that might be in a range of different ways, running workshops, or having special agenda items, or looking at it through some of the programmes of work that we do in CCGs, giving people an opportunity, inviting providers to come and talk to us with new ideas. We have a duty to use taxpayers' money well, and really to make sure that actually we do the whole job, that we commission services that don't strand people halfway through and abandon them before they've actually been able to make the kind of recovery and rehab gains that they could do and move forward. If we don't make the investment in rehabilitation, then we run the risk of people returning to services, failing to engage with getting back to work, in life roles and participating in society. Some condition-specific guidance is very clear and quite prescriptive around what rehabilitation needs to be included. I think where, for some of the conditions we've talked about, where it isn't so clear, then having the NHS England's principles and expectations of good rehabilitation is a real help to commissioners.
Thank you, Helen. I'd now like to introduce Lindsay Hughes, who is the Rehabilitation Programme Lead for NHS England, and she is going to tell you what the programme is currently doing.
To support commissioners like Helen, NHS England is producing guidance to describe what rehabilitation is and how it enables people to live their lives and be as independent as possible across a whole life course. Part of this guidance will also be to signpost commissioners to services that we already know are achieving this. Along with this guidance, we are also producing a tool based on our principles and expectations of good rehabilitation that will enable commissioners to consider the services they are commissioning against the consensus of what good rehabilitation looks like. One of the challenges for all commissioners commissioning rehabilitation services is the lack of consistent data and lack of consistent outcome measures across services. And in the next year, we'll be looking to work with partners at NHS England to address this issue in the work that we're taking forward. The principles and expectations can be found on the Community of Practice website, which is based on NHS networks, and I would encourage anybody listening today to take a look at the website and join the community so that they can take part in the discussion around rehabilitation services and how they can be commissioned in a better way so that we at NHS England can support commissioners to do that successfully.